What if the most stolen drink in history wasn't taken for its taste, but for its power? What if China didn't lose a commodity, but a sacred trust? And what if the British Empire's greatest triumph was built on a leaf they never truly understood? This is Divergence Point. For over 1,000 years, tea was not a product, it was a path. In the misty mountains of Fujian, in the quiet courtyards of Hongzhou, in the monasteries of Wudang, tea was woven into the fabric of Chinese life. It was medicine, it was meditation, it was diplomacy. Emperors gifted it to allies, monks used it to sharpen their minds during long hours of zazen. Poets wrote odes to its clarity. The Chinese didn't just grow tea, they guarded its knowledge. The finest leaves were picked only at dawn by women who had fasted the night before. The processing, steaming, rolling, oxidizing was passed down through families like a secret prayer. To share the method with outsiders wasn't just risky, it was unthinkable. Because tea wasn't just about flavor, it was about balance between body and mind, earth and sky, human and nature. Then came the 19th century, and with it, the British Empire. Britain was addicted to tea, not as a ritual, but as a habit. By the 1830s, the average Londoner drank 3 cups a day. The East India Company imported millions of pounds of it from China every year. But there was a problem. China only accepted silver in return. Silver flowed out of Britain like blood from a wound. The empire's trade deficit with China grew so severe, it threatened the entire financial system. So Britain did what empires do. It found a new commodity to sell back. Opium. Grown in India, smuggled into China, sold to addicts, opium reversed the flow of silver. But it also ignited a moral crisis. Wars broke out, China resisted, and Britain needed a permanent solution: break China's monopoly on tea. Enter Robert Fortune. In 1848, the East India Company sent this Scottish botanist on a mission disguised as scientific exploration. But Fortune was no innocent scholar. He was a corporate spy. He shaved his head, grew a queue, dressed as a Chinese merchant, and traveled deep into the forbidden tea hills of Fujian, places no foreigner had ever seen. For 2 years, he did the unthinkable. He collected 20,000 tea plants. He stole processing tools, and most crucially, he recruited 8 Chinese tea masters, luring them with false promises of high wages and safe passage. They didn't know they were being smuggled out of their homeland. They didn't know their knowledge would be used to destroy the very system that honored it. Fortune shipped everything to Darjeeling, in the foothills of the Himalayas. There, on British-controlled soil, the first non-Chinese tea plantation bloomed. Within a decade, Indian tea flooded the global market. Prices collapsed. China's tea exports plummeted by 90%. The economic damage was catastrophic, but the cultural wound ran deeper. Overnight, tea was no longer a sacred art. It became a commodity, boiled in factories, packed in crates, sold in corner shops. The British called it progress. The Chinese called it theft of the soul. Now, what if Fortune had failed? What if the tea masters had refused to leave? What if the plants had died in transit? What if the British had never broken the secret? China might have kept its monopoly for another century. Tea would have remained rare, revered, and expensive, like fine wine or aged whiskey. Only diplomats, scholars, and the wealthy would have tasted the true leaf. In Britain, There would be no afternoon tea, no tea breaks in factories, no cuppa as a national ritual.
The East India Company, already weakened by opium scandals, might have collapsed decades earlier, unable to replace its tea profits. Without that financial engine, the British Empire's grip on India could have loosened sooner. And in America, the Boston Tea Party of 1773 might never have happened because tea would have been too precious to dump into the harbor. Without that symbolic act, the revolutionary movement might have lacked its unifying spark. There might never have been a Tea Party political movement in modern times.
But the deepest change would be in how we see knowledge itself. If China had protected its secret, the world might have learned a different lesson. Some wisdom isn't meant to be extracted, copied, and sold. It's meant to be earned through patience, respect, and presence. Today, we brew tea in paper bags in 30 seconds, unaware of the centuries of silence, soil, and spirit in every leaf. The British called it democratization. The Chinese called it loss. And history called it trade. But what if the real theft wasn't the leaf, but the story behind it? This is Divergence Point.
The questions we explore here at Divergence Point are complex, but they are the ones that will define our future. If you believe this conversation is important and want to be part of a community that isn't afraid to ask the big what-ifs, then consider subscribing to our channel. Activate the notification bell so you never miss the next divergence point in our journey. We have so much more to explore together. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and take care.